More and more financial institutions are really dependent on overdraft fees
Yes.
and other charges like this, and it's not just true of big banks, it's true of smaller banks
That's
as
right.
well, isn't it?
That's right. And so, I am concerned about the fact that the four largest banks hold half of our deposits and that the number of smaller banks has diminished radically over the last 2 decades. At the same time, I think a lot of smaller banks have felt like they need to adopt some of the same practices in order to compete. And that's troubling. And it also makes it harder for people to say, well, I'll just go to the bank on my corner because that'll be better. It's not so formulaic anymore. I do have a button on my website, lisaservon.com, that's called How to Leave Your Bank, which does provide consumers with some information about how they can go about figuring out whether the financial services that they're using now are the best for them, and, for example, where they can find a credit union that they could join.
So what else do you think the regulators need to change about their mindset? You mentioned a little bit that they may be partial to banks over non-bank financial providers, but what else?
So I think there are things that regulators could do to solve some of the problems that my customers told me about when I worked in the check casher and the payday lender. One I talked about was transparency, right? So, I kind of painted that picture of what it looks like when you walk into a check casher. Most people who are watching probably know what it looks like when they walk into their bank branch, but they may not have registered that you don't see anywhere what's for sale, what are the products, how much do they cost, are there different kind of options versus vis-a-vis overdraft fees. And actually the law now says that you have to opt in to overdraft protection, but most people I've surveyed don't know whether they opted in or out. So lifting up these important decisions about what kind of account you're going to get, whether it makes sense for you to have overdraft protection or not, those are really important. One of the things that I advocate for in my book is something like a financial facts box that would accompany every financial product or service, the way that we have nutrition fact boxes on the side of breakfast cereal and bread and pasta sauce that shows exactly what is in that. So you could actually stand side by side, probably not in a bank because we don't have a kind of financial services marketplace,
yeah.
It would be nice, but online where you could at least say, I'm going to compare this checking account to that one. NerdWallet is a site that I like that helps people do that. So that's one thing. Another thing that I think the regulators could help us do is to evaluate one provider over another a little bit better. And you and I both live in New York City. We live in a city where restaurants are regulated by the health department, and every restaurant has an A, B, or C in its window, a big blue letter. It's hard to miss. And I don't know about you, but I do not order Thai food from the B's and the C's in my neighborhood because I don't want to know about what's going on in their kitchens. But we could do the same thing. The CFPB is the perfect agency because it does have jurisdiction over payday lenders, check cashers, and banks, so that people could say, like, okay, this is kind of a good housekeeping seal of approval. Finally, one third thing, I have lots of ideas, but I'll just talk about one here, is that there are products and services that very innovative people are trying to create to help serve people better in the consumer financial services industry that are having trouble getting through the regulation that you need to get through to get that product to market. So, the FDA has the ability to have drug makers test drugs before they go on the market to see if they're safe. The UK has a financial services regulatory sandbox that would allow financial services creators to do the same thing, to kind of test market something before it has to go through all of those regulatory hurdles. So those are 3 things I think that regulators could do to help speed up solving this problem.